Today I'm going to be explaining this, which is basically just how I categorize every single operator into different groups, from beginner to expert, what type of operator they are. There are operators in multiple groups, and I'm going to explain this so you can understand all of the operators and their gadgets way better just from the start. So if you're a new player, this is going to help out a ton just in understanding how the game works entirely and all the operator abilities and how they interact. But if you're not a beginner player and you've been playing for some time, this will also help you because it'll just make things make more sense. At least this is how they make sense in my brain from playing the game for 10,000 hours. So let's get into it. Okay, let's start off with our simple abilities. We have attackers on the left, defenders on the right. That's going to be pretty standard for this entire list. So attack-wise, our simple abilities are Finka. You press one button, you get health stim for the whole team. You literally just press a button and it activates her ability. Same goes for Lion. You activate his ability, everyone has to stand still. Very, very straightforward. Nox ability, just invisible to cameras. You click Nox ability, you are invisible to cams for a short period of time. Nothing more to it. Monty, you can extend and unextend your shield, and that's his entire ability. Glaz, thermal scope. That's it. Amaru, fly in through window. That's it. Like literally you're just flying into a window. Buck's ability is just an underbarrel shotgun. That's it. Sledge, sledgehammer. Very simple. Ash, breaching round, blow stuff up. That's it. Then we have defense. Cav, her ability just makes her quiet. The silent step ability makes her quiet. Now, she also has an extra ability, which is interrogation, which lets you interrogate down defenders and gain info on where they are. But for the most part, you're just walking around quietly, and that's pretty much it. Vigil's ability just makes them invisible to drones when it's activated. Again, you're just clicking your ability button and it turns on. It's that easy. Warden, you can see through smokes and flashbangs. That's literally all he does. Doc's ability is a stim pistol. You pull out stim pistol, it give you health. Speaking of health, here's all the operators that give you health. So if you're on defense, it's Doc, Rook, and Thunderbird. Lol. Rook plates will just give everyone 20 extra health, and everyone also gets self-revive. It's actually a really good ability, especially in lower ranks where people aren't hitting headshots as much, because if you didn't know, headshots are one-shot kills in this game. Thunderbird has these like little stations that she puts down that just give health to anybody that walks over top of them on defense. Attackers can't get it unless they hack it with Brava. Finka is the only attacker that gives health, and that's what we already covered in the simple ability. The first operator just gives you health. She also gives you a bit of like boosts in other areas, but health is the only thing that she is the only one on attack that does it. Nailed it. Then we have Ella, who's just throws down her Ella mines. You can just throw them at people. You can pre-place them. They just activate on proximity. Very, very simple to use. Oryx just dash. He just dash. He moved really quick for a short period of time, and he can jump up hatches. Nobody else can do that, except for Amaru if you use the grappling hook. Rook, again, just putting the armor plates down. You do it right off the start of the round. You don't have to worry about anything after that with Rook. That's why he's so simple and so nice. Legion has a bunch of little goo mine traps that charge up over time, and if you walk over them, they get stuck in the attacker and do damage, and they have to worry about it. But from his perspective, you're just throwing these around the map, and it's very, very straightforward. That's all like the most simple operators you could possibly think of. This doesn't mean they're the most beginner friendly, though. I do have the beginner to advanced / expert operators that we'll go over later, but these are more recommended on how simple they are, but also how effective they can be. Now we have our soft breachers, which are people that blow up soft walls. There's two types of walls in this game. If you didn't know, most people know this. The soft walls and the reinforced walls, and technically all the other walls. So the soft walls are the ones that you can shoot open. Soft floors, you can shoot them open with guns, explosives, or soft breachers. So you have Sledge, who can literally sledgehammer through a soft wall. Buck, who can use that underbarrel shotgun to blast through a wall. Ash, blow up the wall with the Ash launcher. Ram, activate a boogie and it can go through a wall or blow up utility. Flores has the explosive drones that can blow up walls. Zofia can blow up walls with her impact grenades. Then you have breach charges, which is the secondary attacker gadget that can blow up walls. Now, I don't have any defenders under this category because any defenders with impact grenades, which are these impact grenades or C4s, can blow up walls with those. So there's a lot of defenders that have those, or any shotgun. So any shotgun is also considered soft breach because you can open up walls with them or floors. Next up, we have our flank watch category. This is going to be for attack mainly. You have Gridlock, who throws down these track stingers. Nomad, who can just place down her air jabs. Claymores, of course, the secondary gadget that multiple operators have, can be good for flank watch. Then you have Roora, the newest operator who shoots basically castle barricades, like panels on doorways. So doorways will kind of get blocked off with this, and the defenders would have to shoot them to flank. And then you have Zero, who has 0 cameras that you can shoot in unique flank spots, but the difference with him and these other ops is you have to actively watch those cameras, so they won't automatically alert you when someone flanks. You have to be on the cameras to see when someone flanks, compared to these operators where their abilities will just go off and give you the audio cue that it's going. Now, the last flank watch is drones. This can be the most common version of flank watch. You just have a drone set up, you're watching it on a drone, which all attackers have, if you didn't know. Some people just might not know that. Now, in terms of defense flank watch, it's not really called flank watch on defense, it's more just like information, which we do have info ops. So there's 2 types of info on defense. There is passive information and active information. Your passive information is going to be things that will automatically alert you that there is an enemy there. So these are your trap operators for the most part. This is Alibi, Capcan, Frostmat, Ella Mines, Aruni Gates, Malusis, Legion, Thorn, all of these traps, proximity mines, barbed wire, that the attackers will hit and interact with and create a sound cue and give you some sort of information that that person is there. This could be a barricade. You just barricade a door and you hear someone punch it. That is information. Then you have your active information operators, which is your Maestro cams, your Echo cams, your Valkyrie, your Pulse scanner, your Clash shield, something you have to actively watch, like the Zero cams, to gain that information. Whereas if I'm not on my Echo cams and they walk past it, I'm not going to get the info that they're there. So this is active information. Same with the Scopos bot. You have to be watching it to see when someone crosses, etc. So these are all your information operators on defense. These are all of them. There's no more than this, and unless I missed one. Now on attack, there's different types of info ops. So you could technically say that these flank watch operators are info ops, because if someone shoots your gridlocks or hits your nomad, you're going to get info. So we could include them in the info ops as well. What I refer to more so when I talk about info ops on attack is operators that gain extra info. So if you find that your team's drones are not enough information to figure out what's going on, you can bring these operators to gain more info than you would have with just your drones. So you have Zero, who has 6 Zero cams, like we talked about before, to kind of put around the map and gain more info. Then you have Yana, who can just basically submit a clone out of her soul and then run around in this clone form to gain info. It's basically just a human drone, but it's her whole ability. Then you have Dokkaebi, who gets info by calling all the defender phones. There are counters to this, so sometimes they won't get called if they're standing on a mute jammer, for example. And then you have like Grim, whose bees get more info. If they stand in it, it literally pings them. Jackal can scan feet to find people. Zofia can use her stun grenades, and if they blow up right away, you know there's a person in the room, so that's also really good info to have. Brava has 2 extra drones, which do way more than just gather info. Same with Twitch and Flores. Brava can hack defender gadgets, Twitch can tase them to break them depending on what they are, and Flores can blow them up. Then you have shields, which aren't typically known as info, but they do provide more info because you can walk around and clear angles safely with a shield in front of you, so you can gather information on rooms without getting killed, which is why I consider shields info ops as well. You have Monty, who is the most safest, most indestructible shield, the hardest to kill of all of them. You have Osa, who has 2 shields that she can deploy and place down, which are really nice, a harder operator to learn. You have Blitz, who has a smaller shield, but he also has a flash that he can use aggressively. So this is like an aggressive playmaking shield. And then you have Blackbeard, who has an AR and a shield, who can drop the top of his shield down and shoot people while having that shield for cover. So you can keep it up and check corners and gain info that way, but then you can get aggressive and shoot people. Then, of course, you have Deimos, who is one of the most expert operators in the game, in my opinion, but he can literally track individual operators down and hunt them down with full wall hacks, which is really, really, really good information as well. And then, of course, you have the drones on attack as well. On defense, bulletproof camera, also going to be part of that passive info. You have to actually watch it to get use out of it. So you have all your info ops, which kind of tie into the flank watch a little bit, right? But then you go over and you have your counter info ops. So these are operators that are countering these operators, but also doing other things at the same time, because it's complicated, okay? So You have IQ. IQ is probably one of the best like counter info ops because she can detect any electronic gadgets. So out of these info ops, she can find Maestro Cam, she can find Echo Cam, she can find hacked Mozzie drones, she can find Pulse, Valk Cams, she can find Clash's shield, I believe, I'm not 100%, she can find Scopos' bot, she can find the bulletproof cameras, the beepers, the Thorn gadgets, the Malusis, the Aruni gates, the Elemines, the Alibi clones, the Cap cans. But she can't find the Frost Mat. She can't find the Legion mines. She can't find the barbed wire. You know what else she can't find is any of the hard utility. So like the castle barricade. So anything that isn't electronic, she can't find. So she's good for finding all the traps that provide that passive info, but that's about it. You also have Twitch, who is a good counter info op because she can tase the traps. She can break the goo mines that IQ can't find. So she can tase her way through, also getting rid of the default cameras, which are information, so she can break a lot of this stuff rather than just seeing it like IQ can. So those Twitch ones are really good for getting in and kind of clearing out an area of the passive info so you can then push it and they won't gain the information on you, which is why Twitch is such a strong operator. Then you have Thatcher, who can EMP any electronic gadgets, so you could temporarily disable a Malusi wub or an Elamine and then push in off of it. This is a little more niche for counter info. Like, you wouldn't be picking Thatcher specifically to counter the information they have. A lot of the time it's the IQ, the Dokkaebi, or the Twitch. The Dokkaebi is good because you can kill a defender and then hack their cameras, and if you hack their cameras, you now get access to all of the cameras, so you can see all their defaults, you can see all their Valk cams, you can use it against them, so you know, gain all the defender information, which is really, really strong. Plus, you realize what they have on you. Plus, at the same time, when you call cell phones with Dokkaebi, none of the defenders can access the cameras for that short period of time, which is why she is so strong and one of the best operators in the game. Then you have Nock, who just literally isn't seen on cameras, which is pretty straightforward counter info. The info is not gaining on her specifically. Then you have Zero, who can, like Twitch, tase stuff, so you can use the Zero cams to tase an Elamine, a proximity mine, and then push it afterwards. It's a little more niche. I don't highly recommend it. Then you have your secondary gadgets, which are your EMP gadgets, like Thatcher, but just a little weaker in the secondary gadget. And then your Smoke, which can literally block off lines of sight. It's not as much a counter info to actual info gadgets. It's more of counter info to face checking. So this is going to stop them from watching that line of sight with their gun up. So you're just blocking off angles naturally with the smoke. That's what a smoke grenade's for. I mean, I think we all know that. So defense-wise, Mute is going to be your number one counter info op. He counters so many of the attackers alone, just his gadget. If you're in the radius of the Mute Jammer, like we could go through right now. Who does Mute counter? Finka can't stim in a Mute Jammer. Thermite, Fuse, if he's trying to fuse the radius of the Mute Jammer. Ace, Hibana, Jackal gets all blurred. Twitch drones get muted. Hibana, Nomads can get muted. Yana clones get muted. Flores drones get muted. Boogies get muted if they're not already activated. Brava drones get muted. Dokkaebi calls, if you're standing in a Mute Jammer, don't work. Then you have Zero cams also get jammed if they're too close to a Mute Jammer, or if the attacker is standing on the Mute Jammer. You have Aurora panels that get muted as well. Grim's Bees, if you're standing in a Mute Jammer, don't track you. Lion is also going to stop you from getting... I don't have Lion here. Lion's also going to stop you from getting scanned. You can move around in the Mute Jammer. And then most importantly, Deimos, one of the strongest operators, doesn't work if you're in a Mute Jammer. And same with Blitz. If he's in a Mute Jammer, his shield's not going to work. So Mute counters so many operators and is so strong. Now, heading back to those counter info operators, we still have a few left. We have Vigil, can't be seen by drones when his ability is active, so that's pretty useful, but you can, of course, still hear him on the drone. Same with Nock, which is why I don't love Nock too much. Cav, again, going back to Cav, she has that silent step, so she's harder to hear, which is that counter info. You have Mozzie, who hacks the drones, so now you're gaining info from their info, but you're also stopping them from gathering info, so it's a bit of a Dokkaebi situation there. Then you have Solus, just can find gadgets. She's like the IQ of defense. She can find the drones, go and break them. And one more counter info op that I forgot to add is the Brava, because Brava can also hack cameras, so she can hack the default cameras as well and gain the info on that too. So she's also, you know, hacking the gadgets to get rid of the gadgets, but she's also gaining information from hacking things like cameras. Next up, we have our set and forget operators. These are operators that are like the simple abilities, but they're operators that in the prep phase, for defense at least, you're just placing the stuff down and you don't have to think about it for the rest of the game. There's a couple exceptions in here that you can do other things besides set and forget, but for the most part, if you want to just throw your utility down and be useful, these are the operators I would recommend. So on attack, we only have Nomad in Gridlock. You just throw them down, you're holding the flank, you have the Claymores down, whatever. Claymores, again, go with multiple other operators, but in terms of operator abilities, Nomad, you shoot them down. You don't have to worry about it until they hit the air jab. Gridlock, same thing. You throw them down, and there you go. You've used your ability. But for defense, you have a lot more. So you have Cade. You just throw the Electro Claws down by reinforcements. They get electrified, and they can't open the wall as easily. This is one of the exceptions because you can Cade Trick, which means picking up your Cade Claw, throwing it down again, and trying to avoid the EMPs. So there's layers to it, but you can play him just as a set and forget operator, and he's still really strong. Jaeger ADSs, you just place them down in the prep phase, and now those areas have more protection. Capcan traps, throw them down in the prep phase. Thorn traps, you can just throw them down everywhere. Goo Mine, same thing. Thunderbird, same thing. You're putting down the Konas. Rook Armor right off the start. Bandit, just banditing reinforcements. Bandit tricking, again, another exception like Cade tricking, where you can trick in between the EMPs to get around those EMPs. Then you have Aruni Gates, which she just puts on doorways. Alibi Prismas, which you just throw down and they're fake versions of you. Malusi Traps, which you really want to just put around doorways and areas to cover that area. If someone walks into it, they activate on proximity. Frost Mats, someone jumps in, they snap and break their legs. Mines, same thing. Then you have your proximity mines, your observation blockers, and your barbed wire, which just do their thing all entirely on their own, and you don't have to actively use them. So this is another example of like the passive utility or passive information, like we talked about a little bit with the information ops. Next up, we have our hard breaches and wall denial, let me tell you as well. So for your hard breachers, there's only 4. There is Thermite, Ace, Maverick, and Hibana. These are operators that break reinforced walls, okay? There's only 4 of them, but you also have your hard breach secondary gadgets, which lots of operators have. How does this really work? Thermite, he makes the biggest holes. Ace can do it at range, but he makes smaller holes, okay? But he can also ace other things like floors, shields, and he can do it quickly. He's fastest of all the hard breachers, and that's his main perk. Thermite's main perk, again, is the big holes. Maverick's main perk as a hard breacher is he is immune to wall denial. So he can burn and torch through a reinforcement even with the wall denials actively trying to stop them from opening it. But the downside is he takes time and he can get shot through his own holes while he's trying to blowtorch it. So you have to be careful, and he's a very difficult operator to actually play properly. Then we have Hibana, who, like Ace, can do it at range. She takes a little longer. The difference here is she has different amounts of pellets she can use. So she's better for making lines of sight just because she can put maybe like a 2 pellet hole or a 6 pellet hole, and she has a bunch of pellets. She's also the best for getting hatches out of all the hard breachers. Then you have your wall denial, who counter the hard breachers except for Maverick. Bandit and Cade both have electricity wall denial. They put their things on the wall directly or near the wall, if in Cade's case, and they electrify the wall. Thermite, Ace, Hibana, they will all get their gadgets destroyed if they try to place it on the electrified wall. Mute will just mute the gadgets, so they can't actually activate them, or they won't go off if the hard breach is in the radius of the mute jammer. This is another reason why Mute is so strong. Like we talked about before with his counter info, his wall denial is also pretty good. I mean, it is worse than Cade and Bandit, but it's still something that he can do, making him even stronger. Next up, we have Tubero, who doesn't break any of the attacker hard breach gadgets, but he wastes a lot of time. So he slows down the wall. He freezes the gadgets for, I believe it's 12 seconds. It might be 15. And you can combo him with the Bandit in the Cade. So if you have a Cade or a Bandit and a Tubero, you can work together to dodge your way through the EMPs and the different wall denials to try and stop the hard breachers from opening the wall. Hard breaching is one of the most important things in this game, and it's so complicated and there's so many layers to it. But the more you explore this, the more you'll start to understand how they all work together. Now, you can impact any of the hard breacher gadgets, except for Maverick, of course. You can also C4 the gadgets off the wall or kill the hard breacher with a C4. Especially Maverick, you can C4 out through the Maverick holes to kill him, which will kind of stop him from getting the wall. But then you have the wall denials. Thatcher is the first one. You can EMP the Cade Claw, the Bandit, and the Mute. You cannot EMP the Tubero canister. So that will temporarily disable them. I believe it's for 15 seconds while your hard breacher opens the wall. So comboing the Thatcher with one of these 3 hard breachers is usually very common and very strong. Then you have Callie, who has a lance. So she shoots her lance on the wall, which destroys things on both sides of the wall. So if your Thermite's already on the wall and there's one Bandit on one of the 2 walls, let's say, the Callie will break everything. It doesn't care about your team's utility either. It'll break the Bandit charge, yeah, but it will also break the Thermite charge. So you have to do this before the hard breacher places it down. So if you see the Bandits on the wall, you can Callie the wall and break the Bandits. However, Bandit can pick up his Bandit charge as you do this to stop it from being broken. The same thing goes for Cade. You can put Cades actually in invincible spots where they're so far away from the wall and they're in these niche little spots that Callie's lance just won't break them for whatever reason. So Cade can get around the Callie counter, which is why I don't love her as a counter, is because she is this inconsistent counter operator for wall denial. But she will also break Two Bros canister if it goes off before it's actually, no, it would just freeze it. It would just freeze the Callie. So that won't even work anyway. She does work against mute though. So like the mute won't jam the Callie lance. So she's good if you want to just try to break all the wall now and you know they're not tricking, and then you can hard breach afterwards. Now, you also have Zero, who can shoot a camera inside and tase the bandit off or tase the Cade Claw off if you can get a camera in the right spot to be able to do it, which is harder the higher the ranks you climb because you play better players who can hear the cameras and will shoot it before you can actually do that. You also have the impact EMPs, which can work for Cade Claws and bandits if you know where they are. So if the Cade Claw is on the top of the wall, you have to EMP close enough to it that it actually gets it. So you have to know where the Cade Claws are ahead of time when using impact EMPs, which is why it's kind of risky. But if it's bandit, you can just throw it at the bottom. You know it's going to be at the bottom of the panel because that's the only spot bandits can go. With EMPs, if you're using something like Habana or Ace, because it takes longer to fully deploy, you might have to use both EMPs back to back, like 5 seconds apart, because they only last 7 seconds, I believe. If you EMP it and then you shoot the Habana on and then you activate the Habana, by the time the pellets are actually going to explode, the bandits will come up again and re-electrify and break the wall. So you have to do it a second time and use both impact EMPs to actually deny the denial. And I think that's it. That's pretty much it for wall denial. It is very complicated. The more you play, the more you understand, but it's also a very important and useful part of the game. Lastly, we have our execute and plant operators. These are operators that are going to force their way into spaces, taking that map control, and are especially good when you're trying to plant the bomb to either cause a lot of chaos or cover you while you plant. And then for defense, we have operators that counter the execute operators. So these are plant denial operators and plant operators. Now, they don't always have to be used for just planting. They can also just be used for taking space around the map using their abilities. And I'm going to add one more to the list. Perfect. Firstly, we have all of our shields. Our shields are great for planting because you can stand in front of the planter and cover them. That is going to be best for Monty, who has the biggest shield and the most cover. Osa shields are also great for this because you can cover yourself with the Osa shield and your teammates can peek up off that Osa shield to protect you. However, they're the most vulnerable because you can break them with a single impact grenade, and the defenders can obviously see you planting on the other side of it. Now with Blackbeard, he's the only one that you can't do this with, is plant backwards. So with Blitz and Monty or Fuse Shield even, you can plant backwards and the shield will go on your back and cover you from incoming bullets. They can still shoot your like booty cheeks and your ankles though, so it's not 100% safe, but it adds more cover while you're planting. The other thing with Blitz is while someone else is planting, you can dive through the bomb site and get aggressive and flash them and be up in their face and cause a lot of chaos while the guy's planting behind you. So that's another way to use the shields on these executes, is pushing through the bomb site while your teammates plant. Now with Ying, you can just blind everyone, smoke off angles. She has the smokes as well, which are here on this list. You can smoke things off, blind people. It creates a lot of noise as well while someone's planting. Good to push through or just plant and use it in that kind of fashion. You have Capitao, who has smokes with his crossbolt, but also has fire with his crossbolt. So if you smoke and fire it, they're coming through the smoke, but they're also walking through the fire, so they're taking damage and dying as they're trying to push back while you plant. Then you have Sense, who just has like walls, like light walls. Now they can still shoot through them like smoke grenades, so you can still die getting sprayed through it, but they block off bulletproof cameras and maestro cameras. So any sort of cameras that are trying to see through, like would typically see through a smoke grenade, they can't see through the sense walls, which is why they're good. However, they all are vulnerable to C4s and impact grenades, and that's one way to break them. You have Gridlock, who like Capitao, you can smoke and drop the Gridlocks in the smoke, so as they're pushing through, they're taking damage, they're getting slowed, and they're maybe dying. Glaz can obviously see through the smoke, so if you're planting with a wall of smokes in front of you, he can see through the smokes and protect the guy that's planting the bomb, which is why he's such a good execute operator. And really, like, that's the only use for Glaz in my opinion. Flashbangs are great on planting. They create a lot of noise. They blind the defenders so that they can't shoot you while you're planting. Smoke grenades, of course, blocking the lines of sight, allowing you to plant. And then you have Grim, who has the bees, which are really, really loud, but also control a lot of space. So if you shoot them everywhere while you're planting, you know where all the defenders are. You can have wall hacks on them if they're in the bees, and you just shoot them through the wall, pre-fire them, whatever, and it's a fantastic way to cover a plant. Planting is one of like the most underrated things in this game. People don't do it enough. If you can just learn how to plant and execute with one teammate really, really well, you'll win so much more on attack. Now, defense-wise, there's actually not that many plant denial operators. There's not a lot of operators that counter this kind of play style, but the ones we do have, I'm going to explain. Firstly is Warden. Of course, you can see through the smokes. You can see through the flashes, so he's going to counter Ying really well, or any smoke grenade ops, flashbangs. The difference is if they have the glass and he's already posted up in the angle, Warden's goggles take a few seconds to charge up. So if you're peeking into the smokes and they have a glass, you will probably die, so beware of that if you are playing Warden. Smoke is going to be the best plant denial operator. They're yinging and flashing and being everything. One smoke grenade covers so much area that they just can't plant in that area without dying, because it's like a damage over time thing, and it goes pretty quick. So if they're planting and you have the smoke, or you can just counter smoke a smoke grenade. If they're trying to plant in a smoke grenade, you throw a smoke grenade in it. It's now toxic and they can't plant in there and they have to retreat. And now they don't have the smokes to do it again because they just used their utility for that first push. And if they do have another set of smokes, you have 3 smoke grenades to get the job done with. Then you have Tachanka, who is like smoke, but just way worse. The radius on the Tachanka fire is much smaller. It takes a lot longer to deploy. You have to be a lot more accurate, and it's a lot harder to use, in my opinion. But technically, he is a plant denial operator. He's good on some sites, like the CEO bomb site on Consulate, which is probably his most like iconic site. That in the basement of Bank. Thorn is next. You can technically have a pocket thorn trap and throw it at the planter. It will activate on that proximity once it's next to them, and it will fully kill a person. So this is actually a decent plant denial strategy. You just have to do it right away because they take so long to deploy. Then you have Elemines, which will concuss the planter and actually pull them out of the plant animation, make them restart the animation. It's really good for time stall, but it's not going to kill them. So you have to make sure you're pushing up as you're doing it and trying to achieve stuff as you're doing it, because it's just not going to win the round unless there's 0-0-0 on the clock. Echo can also do the same thing, concuss the planter and pull them off the plant. You do have to be on the yokai drone actively concussing them to do it. And then Maestro can zap the planters, see through the smokes, all of that good stuff. And one more gadget I would put on here is the bulletproof camera. Now it can't individually stop a plant on its own, but what it can do is see through those smoke grenades, so that you can look through the smoke grenade, ping the planter, and then shoot them through the smoke afterwards once you know where they are. C4's one of the most classic ways to stop a plant. You know they're planting, you throw the C4, you blow it up, they die. Impact grenades also work, especially from below. You can impact from below, which works really nicely. That will pull them off the plant animation, but also do a lot of damage. You could probably shoot them to death after. So a lot of different ways to stop a plant. Overall, this is probably one of the most important categories, I'd say, on this list. That is literally all the operators broken down into what I would consider the most important categories. Now you might be wondering, what about roamers? What about anchors? What about entries? What about supports? These are what people think of when they think of operator roles, or at least the roles they're playing on the team. The way I think about these roles is I truly believe that you can roam with any operator in the game. You can anchor with any operator in the game. It really just depends on how the other team is playing and what they're doing. So what I like to do is bring these different operators with these different tools to contest whatever the other team is doing. So if they're running heavy executes, yeah, I'm going to bring the Echo and go roam and put my Echo cams on site. I can impact them from below with Echo. So now all of a sudden you have this traditional anchor operator who is now a roamer. Or if they are playing the map and they're clearing the whole map and they're bringing a lot of info, right? They're bringing the Dokkaebi, the Grim, and maybe a Monty. Maybe at that point, I'm just bringing smoke on a roam, and I'm running around the map with smoke to contest angles and block off certain angles, or smoke off that shield and then use the shotgun to rotate around the map quickly. So I think you could play any operator in any role, so I wouldn't focus too much on who to anchor with, who to roam with, but most of the time, it's really like bring whatever tools will help you. Like Melusi, for example, is a very traditional anchor operator, but if you want to roam and you want lots of info, she's going to be really good because you can place them around and it'll slow them down and it'll be loud and you're going to know where they're pushing from. Same thing with Legion, you know? He's more typically a roamer, but he kind of does the same thing as Melusi, so you could run either or. In terms of entering, you know, you have your typical Ashbane entry or Yana or Dokkaebi or whatever, but you could technically entry with Thermite. This is maybe one that I wouldn't recommend because entering with Thermite, you're not going to be able to use his utility for everything, which is why you see Thermite in more of a support role. But with Ace, you could 100% entry with him. He has an AK-12, which is one of the best guns in the game, and then you can use the Selmas for sound cover as you're pushing or to open new lines of sight as you're trying to clear people out. Be open to exploring and learning and being curious about how you can use these operator abilities, because really this is like a game of endless possibility when it comes to abilities, which is why I love it so much. Lastly, we have the operators from beginner to advanced. Defense on top, attack on the bottom. This is operator abilities that are the most simple in their form, like in their most simple form, that progressively get more difficult all the way up to like the most difficult operators to play. So if you're new to the game, this is kind of the general order I would learn the operators in, because it'll help you see success early on, and it'll also help you learn how the operators interact and how the game works as you're learning without being trying to play the most difficult operators in the game right off the start. Start out with these beginner ops. You have the Dock, the Rook, all these very simple abilities that we talked about before. Your hard breachers, your striker. The reason striker I have him so high up here is because this will help you learn all the secondary utility really well. Things like flashbangs, grenades, hard breaching. You're learning all the basics to the game in a very simple way, which is why I love striker here. Sentry, Thunderbird, and then you slowly make your way up. You learn like the more complex hard breacher like Ace after Thermite, Habana. And then Lion, I mean, this is a weird one. A lot of people think Lion's super simple because he's just a one-button ability, but Lion's more about learning the timing, learning droning, learning how to play it off your team, which isn't entirely simple on its own, which is why I have him in a little more of an intermediate position. And then as you get into the harder operators, you're learning Pulse. You're learning how to relay information to your team, which is what makes him so strong. And then up here, we have like Castle and Goyo. The reason I didn't have these guys in a lot of the positions, like these are two operators that you would think could go in the set and forget role. However, they can actually negatively impact your team, which is why I have them towards this expert end. If you place castle barricades down in the wrong spots, you're actually helping the attackers a lot more than you're helping yourself. And the same goes for Goyo. You could be helping the attackers by putting them in spots where they can use them against you and actually hurt your team. So these are more difficult operators that I would not recommend for like a set and forget play style. And a lot of the time, like even with the Goyos, you have to play off the Goyos to actually shoot them and make them useful and do it at the right time. And he's a very complicated operator to learn. Mira is sort of an info op. I mean, you do have to be playing on her Mira window, and it is information that you're gaining. So I could have put her in the info ops position as well, but they're definitely harder operators on this list. Same with that Smoke, the Echo to play properly, Azami, one of the most difficult operators in the game. And I actually forgot an entire category, which we're going to talk about right now because I completely forgot, which is the utility and counter utility category. So this is one of the most important categories as well. It's like info, but it's hard utility. So this is bulletproof utility I'm more so referring to, which is the castles. These are the things that you need explosives to blow up, which is why I have Fuse, Flores, Ram, Ash, Roora, Zofia, Sledge, Osa. Like, okay, so counter utility ops on attack are Fuse, Flores, Ram, Ash, Zofia, and Sledge. These are operators that can break and blow up bulletproof utility. Then you have utility operators on attack, which are Roora and Osa. Roora doors can be impacted by defenders. You need explosives to break the Osa shields and the Roora doors. The Gon 6 is part of the Fuse category. This can also break castles and bulletproof utility. Same with grenades. And then flashbangs is going to be part of the Roora Osa because that is utility that you can use on attack. So this is kind of two categories at once, but these guys basically break the stuff that you can't break with guns, which is Castle, which is Clash's Shield, which is Azami Barricades, Malusi Wubs, Frost Mats, Scopos' Drone, Shields, Legion Mines. So these are non-electronic gadgets. Actually, sorry, Malusi's are electronic as well. But to break a Malusi, you have to be in the radius to open it up to be able to shoot it. But you can break all the rest with just explosives. So these operators are going to be the ones that can break that stuff. Azami's barricades, you can shoot them, but it takes a lot of ammo. It's a lot easier to shoot an Ash charge at it or throw a grenade. Clash's Shield, if she's placing it down, you can break it. If it's in front of her, you can't break it. She is one of the most broken and annoying operators in the game right now, and that's part of the reason why. Castle barricades, you can punch 9 times. It just takes a lot of time, so you're going to want to use these counter utility operators to break them instead. Then you kind of have on defense the counter utility operators. So we have all the utility operators on defense, which we just talked about. about. Then you have the counter utility operators, which is the Jaeger, Wamai, and Aruni, which stop utility from breaking stuff. So you can protect your utility with the counter utility. So the ADSs are going to catch the grenades, catch the flashbangs, catch the Gon 6, and stop them from being able to break this stuff. Same with the Wamaitis, same with the Aruni gates, which is why these guys comboed together are going to be really good. Now you also have your bulletproof camera, which is utility because it's bulletproof. You have to blow it up with explosives. Same with the barbed wire. You can also punch it a couple times. And then the C4 and impacts are going to be used for counter utility on the Osa shields and on the Roradors. So a little complicated in terms of utility and counter utility, but basically what I'm trying to say here is you want to use the explosive stuff to break the stuff that is not normally easy to break. And then we can talk about these operators again, but really just try to follow this as closely as possible. You got your beginner to intermediate to more expert and advanced operators for a plethora of reasons, because these are all the operators in the game. I'm not going to explain every single one, but I hope this helps you get good at the game. Let me know what you think, and appreciate you. Peace out, guys.